Hey there. I'd like to talk about the shadow side, the dark side, that's actually within all of us, whether we want to admit it or want to deal with it or not. And sometimes we're not aware that the dark side is there, and that's okay. But the thing about the shadow, the dark side, is that it gets a truly bad rap. It gets a rap that says it's something negative about us, something wrong with us. And it makes it so that we really don't want to admit that it's there. And to understand the shadow, to begin to demystify it, is to understand what's in the shadow in the first place, what we typically put into the shadows. And some of the first things that go in there are feelings. And so feelings may be such as anger, or fear, or sadness, grief, even joy, can be pushed into the shadows if they weren't safe to express or feel. So many children may have been told, don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about, that saying. But what that does is it makes a child feel like, okay, something's wrong with my sadness, so I better begin to push it away into the shadows. Or if anger is something that was very triggering for your family, or something that was not allowed, something perhaps that was demonstrated by members of your family and it looked very dangerous. Anger is something that can be pushed into the shadows and really numbed out, so that we can almost get to the sense that we actually don't even feel anger, when really what's happening is that our anger has been pushed into the shadows and is actually kind of morphing into other feelings, pretending it's other things, when really it's anger. And sometimes what will happen is that it will then come out in a different way, or in a way that's not intended. So built up anger or repressed anger might come out as anger at our children, when really or our partners, when really it has nothing to do with them. So feelings, when they're shoved into the shadows, they can get numbed down, which numbs us down. It makes us less able to have empathy for other people when our feelings are numbed down. And if they're really, if there's a lot of resistance to them, sometimes they can break through that resistance and appear in our lives in ways that we don't want to experience them. Other things that get pushed into the shadows are things that happen to us. So our traumas, painful events, betrayals, rejections, all of the nasty things that happen to us in our lives that, sometimes we cannot process in the moment, and so we begin to push them away into the shadows. Something that's very traumatic that a child really can't handle automatically goes into the shadows. And so it's not necessarily things that are wrong with us. It is a collection of feelings and events, and even our gifts and talents, the things that we do that bring us joy and fulfillment. We push those things, those aspects of ourselves, into the shadows as well, if we didn't feel safe or accepted or appreciated for those gifts. So anything that didn't feel safe gets pushed into the shadows. But just because it didn't feel safe doesn't mean it's not safe. So when we begin to look at the shadows and we see feelings that maybe felt dangerous, or we see events that harmed us in some way, we can begin to demystify what's there. And it might be painful to do this. However, when we go into the shadows in a safe way to help feelings express in a safe environment, in a gentle way, they can begin to resolve so that they don't have to stay stuck in the shadows. When we look at events that may have happened, we can look at the feelings around the events and do the same thing in a gentle, gentle way. We can uncover gifts and then demystify once again and begin to look at the feelings that are surrounding those hidden gifts and begin to soften them so that the gifts can then rise up and shine. Our shadows are something to look at, because when we go into the shadows in a safe way, we actually begin to see that, you know what? It's not as bad as we thought. And it's a place for forgiveness. It's a place for healing. It's a place to be vulnerable, to recover our sense of compassion and empathy for ourselves. And when we do that, we begin to, we enable ourselves to share that with the people in our lives. So our shadows hold enormous potential. And for whatever reasons that we created them, there's always an invitation to go back and visit so that we can bring things out of the shadows, help feelings express and heal, bring things to the light so that what is ready to flourish can flourish, and what needs to be forgiven can be forgiven. What needs to be let go can be let go. And so that we can be whole without pushing parts of ourselves away. We can bring ourselves back into alignment and be who we truly are. So if you would like assistance working with your shadow, please reach out to me, because it's a place you can go very safely. And once you're there, once you learn how to work with your shadow, it can be one of the most amazing experiences of your life. Goodbye for now. I'll see you in the shadows.